Hello everyone, welcome to the Buzz the Prey Manga. Today we continue the latest Global Freeze chapter, rewritten and edited by me in English for a smooth reading experience. All visuals and story flow are personally edited to give you the best manga style storytelling. Support the original creator by checking the official manga. So let's dive right into the today's chapter.
Chapter 26-21 Death Diva. You are insatiable. The death songstress's second soft whisper caused the bronze mirror to emit a second beam of light. This light amplified his greed for power, victory, and control, and then, at the same time, snapped these desires in two. This sense of rupture travels back to the muscles and nerves, transforming into a momentary emptiness when swinging the knife. The sword of judgment was swung, but its power unconsciously weakened. Aggression decreased sharply. Your family fortune has been completely squandered. The third beam of light, like a cold wind, poured in from above. At that moment, Zhang Yi clearly felt that the circuits of his own abilities were locked by an invisible lock. The realm of formlessness stagnates, the gates to all things dim. The ticking of the second hand of time becomes blurred, and even the tides of the netherworld seem to slow down in the distance. For many years, Zhang Yi's eyes had not seen such a look of despair. Because at this very moment, when the third beam of light shone on him, all his abilities were completely sealed away. Rule-based ability. 3 lives reincarnation. The triple beams stacked on top of each other will inflict increasingly stronger debuffs on those irradiated by the beams. By the third level, the opponent's abilities will be completely sealed. Having lost all his abilities, Zhang Yi instantly became a lamb to the slaughter in front of the Death Diva. Time rewinds to 5 seconds ago. No. To be precise, Zhang Yi's consciousness returned to the reality 5 seconds earlier. Having seen through the opponent's abilities, he couldn't help but tense up. I never imagined that the last Guardian's power would be so terrifying. What's most terrifying is that the power of rules cannot be blocked by the Taishu bathrobe. Of course, he could also choose to completely cut off all contact with the outside world, shutting out light and sound as well. However, in that case, he would also be unable to launch an effective attack. Before Zhang Yi could think of a solution, he heard the Death Diva suddenly chuckle. She gracefully raised her hand, and the orchestra behind her erupted with all its might. The accompanying mechanical life-form dancers suddenly sped up, transforming the entire theater into a brutal meat grinder. The rules system is in a bad state. Zhang Yi became even calmer the moment he was forced to retreat. The death songstress's abilities have been confirmed. She must never be exposed to light. This ability is not a simulation, nor is it an illusion. Rather, it is a strange power that directly intervenes in his physical condition. A single ray of light from her 3 lifetimes could rewrite his current state of battle. If the heavenly ring is the ultimate weapon, and the boundless sphere is the death penalty for spirit and existence, then the final guardian before us is an executioner priest disguised as an artist. These guys aren't just machines. They are living beings. But they have no flesh and blood. Does that mean their spirits are completely contained within machines? Zhang Yi thought this was impossible. If the essence of life form, ether fragments, can reside in machinery, why would the creator bother to create physical bodies? Suddenly, Zhang Yi thought of something. Each time those mechanical life forms are shattered, a beam of red light descends from the sky, reviving them. A bold idea suddenly popped into Zhang Yi's mind. That light was the power of ether, something that the Sand Slayers existed in after they separated from their physical bodies. Like the civilization of the Ihen tribe, they abandoned their physical bodies, leaving only their spiritual bodies. However, it is possible to create artificial bodies to serve as external drives. For example, Ling's existence. The Sand Raiders civilization also went far down this path, probably imitating the Ahen civilization. Unfortunately, they were unable to create a human form like Ling, who is not only identical to a real person but also more perfect than a real person, in terms of the terminal. The Sandslayer civilization did not completely perish. Could it be that their demise was due to the failure of their experiment on collectively separating themselves from their physical bodies? Zhang Yi was utterly shocked, but the death songstress's fierce attacks left him no time to think. Because he had already looked up and seen that death songstress had already grasped the huge bronze mirror in her hand and pointed it at him. "You're afraid of death." The voice was cold and menacing, as if it were a death knell. Zhang Yi's speed was indeed fast enough, and the boundless realm also allowed him to teleport. The mirror lit up, and an eternal light shone forth. He was forced to retreat and dodge, but he couldn't outrun the speed of light. The defensive power of the Taishu bathrobe was rapidly weakened. Even the shoulder armor of the demon god armor was slashed with deep pits by the dancers who danced on tiptoe with blades as their feet. The demon god armor was hit by a sonic shock, and the internal alarms of the demon god armor flashed wildly. The Death Songstress possesses an entire Death Ball Legion, and each member is a powerful elite. It wasn't that their combat strength was too great, but rather that Zhang Yi's defensive capabilities had been severely weakened. Zhang Yi's eyes were chillingly cold as he swung his sword with his right hand, creating layers of ethereal veils around himself. The all-consuming darkness can block out light, but the blockage is only momentary, and it will be broken by the Death Songstress. She parted her cherry lips slightly, holding a golden microphone in her hand, and began to sing an elegant melody. An invisible shockwave converged into a beam, directly shattering the river of the netherworld. While dodging, Zhang Yi managed to gather all the scattered thoughts in his mind into a single point. Only those who truly touch ether and understand the rules of life can play with this kind of thing. The Death Songstress raised her hand and pointed at him again, her smile deepening. "You're a coward who's afraid of death. Completely seal off the defenses. You are insatiable. Cut off the killing intent. Your family fortune has been completely squandered. Lock in its origin. All it takes is for the 3 rays of reincarnation to strike in succession to sentence Zhang Yi to death." The Death Songstress is like a judge sentencing a criminal. The orchestra and dancers were her instruments of torture, and the entire theater was her execution ground. Zhang Yi was forced to endure the damage. His Taishu bathrobe was compressed again and again. Large pieces of his demon god armor peeled off, and his self-repair was difficult to catch up with the damage. He was unable to get close for a while and was in a sorry state, but he was not truly desperate. Every rule system has its weaknesses. It can reign supreme within the rules, but is extremely weak outside the rules. His gaze swept over the surrounding orchestra, and his eye twitched involuntarily. Her close-quarters combat skills are probably not very strong, so we added these dancers and the band as support to make up for her weakness in close combat. If my guess is true, then we should choose to fight at close range. Formless Realm, activate. Zhang Yi gripped the eternal sword of judgment tightly in his hand. This time, he was no longer on the defensive but on the offensive. Whoosh! In the blink of an eye, he appeared behind Death Songstress, swung his greatsword in a wide arc, and slashed it down fiercely towards Death Songstress's head. Kill everything and have a grand burial in the netherworld. Chapter 26-22 Death Songstress 2. The battle outside the theater continued. The mechanical clown and the doll were blasted away by Uncle Yu's cannons, chopped to pieces by Liang Yu's swords, frozen and cracked by Fatty Sue's ice rink, and pecked into pieces by flying crows. These are the elite of the Sandsweeper robots, each possessing combat power at the level of Epsilon. They are the last glorious remnants of the Sand Raider civilization, displaying their power and pride at this moment. Apart from Zhang Yi, no one else had a way to kill him completely, because they cannot drag it to another space to disconnect it from the central system of the inner world. However, Uncle Yu and the others' main task was not to eliminate them, but to hold them off and create an opportunity for Zhang Yi to fight the Death Songstress one-on-one. Freeman leaned against the doorframe, watching all this through the theater's glass, the screen flashing chaotic images. He suddenly felt that he had seen this amusement park, this theater, this set design, this theatricality, this form of defense that uses performance as a ritual somewhere before. Deep in my memory, a scene from a very long time ago resurfaced. In the white city of Mars, Noschi smiles as she rests her chin on her hand, gazing at the miniature amusement park model on the table, a birthday gift he designed for her. During the years his consciousness traversed, he told the people of this planet about many of its civilizations. He told her what an amusement park was like, and how couples in love on Earth rode a carousel together. She said that when Ming returns from his journey, he wants to hold a dance party there that never ends. She said she would wait for Freeman to come to her in the distant future. Freeman stood frozen in the wind. The next second, his fingertips unconsciously lifted up. Schubert's serenade flowed slowly from his fingertips, from his metal throat, from that comical mechanical body. The melody drifted into the theater in the blood-red twilight. Zhang Yi's sword slashed from behind Death Songstress. The attack was extremely sudden, and Zhang Yi was confident that Death Songstress wouldn't have time to turn around. The black sword light enveloped antimatter like a galaxy, an existence powerful enough to erase all matter in the outer universe. But in that instant, the Death Songstress's hair suddenly parted to the sides, revealing a face made of gold. She aimed at Zhang Yi and spewed out an eternal golden radiance. Zhang Yi's abilities were instantly sealed. In Zhang Yi's left eye, the time vortex was rapidly distorting, and his figure stopped in the distance, panting heavily. This is the 7th time already. We've reached our limit. In 5 seconds, 7 predictions about the future were made. No matter which attack method Zhang Yi chose, it would ultimately be neutralized by the Death Songstress. As expected of the final hurdle, it was indeed difficult to overcome. Moreover, considering that they are all terminals of the inner world's central system, information must also be able to be shared. Therefore, at this point, Death Songstress had already thoroughly understood Zhang Yi's abilities. Trying to exploit information asymmetry is absolutely impossible. When he dealt with those 2 guardians, he couldn't possibly have hidden any of his trump cards. Is this the end? In my own opinion, his words were quite meaningful. His own strength is indeed limited to just over 60,000 points. But we still have many other cards to play. If he has reached the limit of his own ability, he will seek external help. Just as the Death Songstress was about to speak again, and the light of the next cycle of 3 lifetimes was about to fall, her body suddenly trembled. Schubert's serenade drifted in through the window and reached her ears. Zhang Yi also heard the sound. He frowned slightly, wondering why Freeman could still have such a leisurely mood at a time like this. But he doesn't have time to deal with that guy right now. However, the scene before him surprised him. He discovered that the Death Songstress's offensive faltered upon hearing the serenade. Those familiar notes were like a hand reaching out from a very distant era, gently touching her heart that had been forged into death. The band's fingers paused for a moment, and the dancer's steps faltered. Death Songstress's pupils contracted, the light patterns on the bronze mirror behind her trembled, and she looked up blankly in the direction of the theater entrance. In that instant, she was no longer a cold-blooded executioner, but a woman who had suddenly heard the sound of her house key in a long nightmare. Nas-chi, Freeman called softly from outside the door. The Death Songstress's body trembled slightly. The mirror of the 3 reincarnations dimmed slightly. This is a flaw. A murderous glint flashed in Zhang Yi's eyes. The seal has not completely dissipated, the attack power is still suppressed, and the defense is still not perfect, but this is the moment he has been waiting for. In a battle between masters, every move counts. A moment's carelessness can be fatal. The Taishu bathrobe suddenly billowed up, and the netherworld membrane reignited on his body. Even in its weakened form, it was enough to block the remaining sonic blades. He forcibly activated the boundless realm, causing the space inside the theater to fold slightly, instantly compressing the distance between him and the Death Songstress. The Sword of Judgment was drawn, its blade surging with blue light, like a ray of light illuminating the deep sea in the twilight. He whispered, "Boundless sword domain." As the lights inside the theater dimmed, the seats, dome, and side corridors were all pierced by blue sword shadows rising from the ground, forming a miniature gladiatorial arena, locking the Death Songstress and him in the center of the stage. The executioner priest, spoiled by musical notes and rules, is forced to stand in the position of being judged for the first time. The death songstress stared blankly in the direction of the door, seemingly still immersed in that distant melody, her lips slightly parted as if she wanted to say something. Zhang Yi didn't give her a chance. The 3,000-dimensional gates reversed within the boundless Sword domain. Behind the gates was not the abyss of the netherworld, but the lingering echo of the 3 lives reincarnation light she had just released, her own circuit of rules. The reverse of all things in the universe. Come together. When Death Songstress came to her senses, she was already inside Zhang Yi's domain. This is my territory. They couldn't possibly have passed on information about this move to you before the boundless sphere was destroyed. His voice came through with an icy tone. The death songstress coldly raised her head and stared at Zhang Yi in midair, then the band around her began an even more magnificent performance. She raised the bronze mirror in her hand, pointed it at Zhang Yi, and spoke softly. You are insatiable. You're afraid of dying. Your family fortune is all gone. This time, it was no longer a deduction made by Zhang Yi using the second hand of time, but an actual attack that took place. Light travels faster than Zhang Yi, so he cannot dodge the death songstress's attack. However, he was able to dodge the moment the death songstress raised her hand. It's like how a person can't dodge a bullet, but can dodge it just before the gunman pulls the trigger. Here ends today's chapter. I hope you liked it. Kindly do also subscribe to my gaming channel. I have to Fina a way to survive.
Tell me
Thanks.
in the comments which part you enjoyed the most. If you love manga style stories, don't forget to like the video and subscribe the Buzz Play Manga. See you in the next chapter with more surprises. Thank you.